Florida State has several freshmen and recruits that could play early, but who are they? Plus, a rundown of Florida State's official visitors.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football writer and recruiting analyst. Thank you for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day. Truly appreciate you stopping in to talk some Noles with me. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com for details. Florida State has a unique recruiting class that we've been talking about on and off over the last month or so. Now we're kind of getting into that setup for the official visits for the class of 26. Got a whole bunch of information on that. But I didn't want the 25 guys to kind of go away. I went back and forth on this, on which guys will make an impact and why. I want you to comment. If you're on YouTube, let me know what your thoughts are. But if you just have thoughts about it in general, you can also hit me up at FBScout_Florida. I'm doing a lot of stuff on the Portal podcast, talking about recruiting, as I got, for those of you that are on YouTube watching this, got that underneath my name. We talk about recruiting on that show nonstop. But this is the crossover. Florida State needs to have some of their first-year players come in and make an impact. Notice I said first-year players, not just high school guys. Hint, there is a junior college player I'm going to save for last on this, but I'm going to give 5 guys that I think can play right away. And again, I've went back and forth on this with a few guys, but shout out to all the different media members that covered the Noles, one of which talked about Tywin Lee. I didn't know he'd gained as much weight as he had, but good weight. 277 pounds is the number that's been bandied about. Look, Florida State needs defensive linemen for their 3-man front. But I thought we would be a weak side end, hand in the dirt kind of guy. And maybe Sinone is the one that talked about it. Maybe he's the kind of guy that, because he added the weight, could still play it in situations where he's standing up and rushing the passer. But at 277, I don't see that. Probably hand in the dirt only. And he's probably going to be a guy that could play on either side as an end now. Florida State needs D linemen. We've talked about this a lot, but originally I thought that the kid, that, quite frankly, coming out of the Panhandle, it's good for Florida State to get him, but I thought he would need a year to gain just a little more weight, figure it out, see which spot is best for him. Well, he's already there. We're only in February, so I'm curious to see what Tywin Lee ends up being in the fall from a weight perspective. Will he lose a little? Will he gain a little? Will he stay the same? But from all indications, Tywin Lee has done the right things, and he's putting on weight in a good way. I want to give a quote on this, but this is what we said to Noles 24/7. It's kind of crazy. I don't even know where the food goes to at this point. That's a great quote from a young man in general. I just keep on eating. They say it's good weight. I just take the word, tone it up, get big. Well, that's a guy that kind of does what he's supposed to and takes the marching orders seriously, goes to the weight room. He makes sure he gets the rest and the food he needs. And if they think he looks great at 277, Florida State fans should think the same. You need D linemen that can hand in the dirt, stand up and power against bigger guys, and are just really good athletes. There aren't a ton of them. I thought Lee was going to be 260-ish this year, but he's almost 280 already. That's a good sign for Florida State football. Number 2, this is the easiest one on the list. Ousmane Kromah, running back out of Lee County. Georgia has a lot of great players each year. Florida State snagged him away from the Bulldogs, away from the Auburn Tigers. Really good football player. Florida State doesn't have an insufficient number of running backs, but there's always room for a guy to tote the football like he can do. And even though Kromah is over 200 pounds, he's 210, 215, he catches really well. Not just like a guy that will catch a screen or catch a pass, swing out of the backfield. Like, he can run routes. I've seen him run corner routes, running right at me, catch the ball over his shoulder just like a wide receiver. Mike Norvell has done a very good job to this point in his career at Florida State of using running backs in the passing game. Now the question is, can he find a way consistently to get Kromah in the lineup despite having Cam Davis. You got Singleton, you got Rodell, you got Jalen Lucas. How you rotate them, I don't know. But the other part of this is the same thing I bring up all the time. Injuries dictate wins and losses more than anything else. Certain guys are going to get beat up. At some point, Kromah, probably earlier than I would like, is going to have to be a mainstay in the running back room because the guys just get banged up, even in fall camp. You're going to see him play a lot this year, and he has a lot of talent. Great kid, too. I've had the chance to interview him a few times. Kromah is an A to B guy, and he will fit in well in Tallahassee. Number 3, kid from Cocoa, Florida, Jayvan Boggs. Efficient, consistent, never satisfied, tremendous hands in the frame to handle the college football level that he's going into. Some guys could handle FCS or lower D1 if they're really fast, this, that, and the other. Boggs has good speed, really powerfully built, like he's built more like a wide receiver than some other guys from the strength standpoint, but it's so much so you'd almost think he looks kind of like a running back. He's powerful. Legs, upper body put together, out of Cocoa, Florida, one of the best programs in Dixie, so he's been trained, and he's one of the all-time leading receivers in the South, just in general, but I think he broke the Florida high school record for yards, if I remember correctly. And above all else, he's clutch. Florida State needs help at receiver. If some of the older guys don't figure it out, he'll make his way into the lineup and he'll start. I have no doubt in my mind that Boggs will play a lot this year. My only question is, which exact spot does Boggs play? I don't know. Power slot, flanker, are they going to move him around? Can he pick up enough of the playbook? Those are great questions for anybody to ask. I just know he's going to play. Florida State will figure it out, let the young man develop in one spot or another, and it may not be like he's starting, but he'll be in the rotation, especially the back half. Again, injuries matter. When guys get banged up, he's going to get a chance. I think that there's a good possibility we're going to see Boggs make some key catches for the Noles this year, and don't discount him on special teams either. That's a very big part of the game, and it's one of the reasons Florida State, or anybody else for that matter, can make a game closer. One big punt block, a great tackle when otherwise the guy had an easy 20 yards. These little details like that lead to wins or losses. When we come back, we're going to talk more about some guys that are going to make an impact in Florida State. Then we're going to switch over to the official visit list. Florida State has lined them up. It's a really impressive group. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started. And there's no better place to get on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets on a same-game parlay. You can use FanDuel's live betting feature in a number of ways. Bet on a player. You can bet on the game. You can just come in on the action and check it out right there on FanDuel, the app. It's right at your fingertips. It's very easy, and you can get paid almost instantly. Right now, FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for one shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. I've talked about Kevin Wynn several times, and I have a feeling he's going to become a household name at Florida State. Let me be clear with the following, though. This will not be as easy a path to playing time as some others. As I've noted numerous times on this show and several other members of the Florida State media, three-man line, at least part of the time for the Noles, means bigger bodies, more experience, guys that have been through the weight room in college. Kevin Wynn's a dude. At a Greene County High School in Georgia, he was arguably the best defensive tackle recruit in the country this past season. That's the good news. The bad news is very simple as well. He is a guy that's coming in against older players. They got different players coming in from the transfer portal. They have players coming back like Jackson. And it's just hard to pick up scheme and understand how to two-gap right out of the gate as a freshman. But again, there are two reasons that I really like this kid. Physicality at 6'2", 320 plus pounds. And secondarily, he just plays hard. I guarantee you, based on what Kevin Wynn has shown to date as a football player, He will catch the attention of not just Coach Potroast, not just Coach White, not just somebody like Mike Norvell. He will catch the attention of any onlooker that is standing in the practice area for the Noles this spring, this summer, this fall. He's a different kind of personality. He goes at it harder than just about anybody you can imagine, and that's what separates good from great. Effort. Kevin Wynn has effort. 320-plus pound guys with athleticism that play as hard as he do, you're going to find a way to get him in the lineup. I'm not saying that he's going to start. I'm not a fool. But I do know what a great football player can do, and Kevin Wynn is one of those guys. Ethan Pritchard's a guy I've talked about numerous times. I'm just going to graze over this one. He's underrated. He's at Seminole High School, one of the best programs in the state of Florida, just north of Orlando. Special teams, whether it's Will, whether it's Mike, Florida State's not loaded at linebacker. They're better than they were last year depth-wise, but they're still not loaded. He will play some on regular downs at some point this year. That's my prediction. I'm probably higher on him than about anybody, but I also guarantee he's going to be a special teams whiz. If nothing else, he will play in a handful of games this year and make a difference on special teams. Even if you don't hear his name called, he's going to do his job. Pritchard's always been that guy. Since I've known him when he's a freshman, just wanted to play. He has an old school mentality that I really like, and he's an athlete. Will, Mike, special teams, Florida State will figure it out. Lastly, this is the guy I kind of hinted at earlier on in the podcast. This is fun for me, and I hope he does well, and I hope I'm right on this. This is a great story. Jordan Scott is out of a community college in Mississippi. There's not a lot of guys coming out of these schools that you hear a ton about. Florida State will get one here and there. They got a couple this year. 6'6", 6'7", runs really well, catches in traffic, and he seems to be hungry. That's important. I believe it's Southwest Community College in Mississippi or Northwest. It's one or the other, but really good football player, and he just doesn't care what anybody else says. I'm going to go do my job. Don't worry about it. I'm going to make it. A lot of guys get to the JUCO ranks, they give up. They don't put in the right effort. This kid did the right things, and now he's at Florida State. Again, you can't teach size either. I love the way Florida State makes their own evaluations and doesn't worry about what other people are doing. You watch Jordan Scott's film, it's like, well, this isn't that hard. Talk about a natural boundary receiver. He's humongous. He's over 215. Florida State could have a player that makes a dent in the depth chart this year. Just up to him to make a concerted effort to learn the playbook and be consistent with his technique. But I really do like the frame, and he's a kid that's earned his way to Florida State. Let's see what he can do. Now let's move over to the recruiting side of things, and this is just about the visits. I'm going to give a few snippets on some of these kids. It's not specifically about 2 or 3 guys. This is just a massive, and I do mean a massive list of visitors. Some of these are going to change in terms of the dates. That's part of the process. I'm not worried about that too much. But at the same time, I know there's going to be a lot of different guys that come to Florida State and take their visit. They'll probably change it 2-3 times. Hey, I get it. But nonetheless, we're going to find out here pretty soon. The month of June is where most of Florida State's visits will be. Georgia, for instance, uses a lot of visits in May. Everybody's got their own deal on that. But whatever the case may be, we'll see what Florida State does with it. All right, here we go. I'm just going to go from early June and then work my way to the end of June. There's no particular order within a weekend. I'm just going to go through what I've seen here. All right, first weekend we're going to talk about is the weekend of the 6th or the 7th, depending on what day guys get there. That is going to be the first week of that. It's going to be Johnny Jones, offensive tackle at Berkeley Prep. We talked about him a lot. Florida State needs a lineman, 6'6", 6'7", 305, 310. Got a lot of upside, but he's raw. But Florida State's battling a bunch of schools like Florida and other big-time programs. TJ White, this is one that was just confirmed by multiple sites. Jackson Academy, I'd heard that they had a really good shot. Now he's lined up for a visit. Again, this is the first weekend in June. TJ White out of Jackson Academy is one of my favorite inside linebackers in the South. That's a nice way to get going. He's a little bit over 200 pounds, 6'2". He can run. This next one is curious to me because I don't know which position he's going to play. Jerron Yulee out of Cardinal Newman. It's a common program that Florida State recruits it's really interesting that they keep going back to that well and other schools aren't picking up on it. But hey, better for Florida State. Cardinal Newman is in Palm Beach County. Corner, safety, receiver. He's a good athlete. Penn State and several other programs have been after him. I'm not sure where Florida State stands, but I know that he's a good football player. I like his film. The next kid is Deion Forkba. Now, this is a kid I talked about a little bit. He's from the state of Georgia, but we know the Noles need linebackers. This is a kid that's at IMG Academy. He's projected by On3 to go to Florida State for whatever that's worth. They need inside backers. I'm really glad that they're starting to get some of these kids on campus. Speaking of Georgia, one of the kids I talk about constantly on this show is Cam Brooks. He's coming in that weekend, defensive lineman that quite honestly could play either strong side or weak side end when this is all said and done. I'm not sure what it's going to be, but Florida State has a chance with a lot of these kids to end up being versatile guys, and they need them to be on the three-man line. I think that Brooks is one of those guys that could play either side and be really good. Georgia, Florida, numerous other programs are after him, but he's only about 30 minutes away. I know that he and a bunch of other guys want to see these offenses and defenses in spring, but Florida State's going to recruit Cam Brooks until he just tells them to go away. He's from 30 minutes from Tallahassee. Caden Hall. Depending on who you talk to, Florida State leads or Florida. I don't know. I've heard different stories. He's from Milton, arguably the best safety in the state of Florida this year. Milton is just outside of Pensacola. Gators versus Noles. It is not a surprise. Samari Matthews, we'll call him Smoke. He is a corner out of North Carolina. He's one of the best prospects in the ACC region along the coast. Love his film. Love seeing him live last year. One of the best corners in the country. Florida State would get a lot better if they got Smoke on their roster. The shocker to me, Lamar Brown. He's also coming in that first weekend. Interior lineman from, of all places, Baton Rouge University Lab, right there on the edge of the campus at LSU. That'll be a major coup. I don't believe it's going to happen. I need to see it, but we'll see. There's also several other kids that, they could surprise me with, but it would be hard to top getting him. Let's see who else we got here. The next weekend, the 13th, Chauncey Kennon's supposed to come in, the corner out of Sarasota Booker. That's a national recruitment that I think will go to the wire. We'll see if Florida State can get that one done. But Kennon's a kid that really seems to like Florida State staff, and he seems to like Norvell a lot. That's important. If you're going to win these battles, and I don't know if anybody's going to be able to overcome just every obstacle there is, but nonetheless, we'll see. You need to win some of them against your biggest competition, though. Miami and Florida are involved there, among others. I think Georgia, that's a battle. Florida State needs to win some more of those to get back on top. Talk about having a top 10 class. Kennon's a big part of that. Brandon Anderson, just saw him at Under Armour in Atlanta, 330-pound guy, North Cobb High School, power player on the inside. He's also doing that weekend. That would be a very nice pickup for the Noles. This is a good one. Saw him as well. Jordan Smith. I thought he was the best offensive lineman at Under Armour this past weekend. He's out of Houston County and Warner Robins. He's wrong player. Jordan Smith, the safety out of Houston County. This is a different kid. 6'2", 180 pounds. He's the safety. This is a guy I'm learning more about, but he's ranked very highly. Top 100 by 24/7, I believe. On3 has him 103. Florida State, Georgia, numerous other programs. But again, Central Georgia, that's an area that Bowden always made a living in. FSU has done a good job. Another central area, Georgia kid, Messiah Jackson. Lee County High School, same high school as Kromah in Leesburg, Georgia. Look, if you get the kids from these kind of programs, you're going to build a bond and help your program get better. I don't know Jackson personally, but this is a guy that's another safety that's really long and athletic. Lee County is one of the best programs in the country. They've got a weight room that makes some NFL teams like, what is that? So I think it's good that Florida State keeps digging in there and they keep going back to the well. It's been successful. Keep doing it. This will be another kid that if you want to make an argument for a coup, this would be it. Carter Lucky, Norcross. His brother is the tight end at Georgia. Yeah, that's going to be rough. I need to see Georgia not get him to believe it. but he's a defensive lineman at Norcross on the edge of Atlanta. Florida State's at least bringing him in for a visit. Darrell Bell, the safety/receiver out of South Florida. Florida State has a commitment from him, but a lot of teams are making a charge on him. Be careful. That could be difficult. Zyke Helton, offensive lineman, Carrollton, Georgia. Big-bodied kid, could play center, could play guard. Georgia, Alabama, the entire list of the Southeast pretty much is on him. Originally a Bama commitment, but Florida State's getting him on campus. And they had a couple guys also signed from Carrollton this past year. Kevin Conchero, wide receiver, big-bodied guy, 6'3", 170. You know how Florida State, Norvell like bigger receivers. This is a kid out of Houston County again, another program in the central part of the state in Warner Robins. It's just amazing to me how Florida State finds these kids every year that kind of fit that profile, and they get on them and they bring them in for visits. So that's good. Archbishop Spalding is just outside of Washington, D.C. Sam Johnson, corner, big guy, 6'1", Penn State, Maryland, a whole bunch of schools are after him. This is kind of one of those randoms. Can Florida State pull off a surprise or two? Just every now and then, like if you can get a kid like this, that's great. I love to see it. But, I mean, it's going to be hard to keep kids away from Maryland, especially with their NIL the way it is. That's a really interesting scenario. Let's see who else we got here. That is just for the first 2 weekends. Let's come back here in just a second, and we'll finish up. Long visit list for Florida State, and that's good news. The Noles have really done a great job getting these visits signed up. We'll finish up next here on Locked On Seminoles. All right, let's talk about the June 15th weekend. Hezzy Kent out of Brunswick down in southeast Georgia on the coast off I-95. One of the best tight ends in the country. Florida State, Florida, Georgia, a whole bunch of programs have been after him. I'm curious to see how that goes. I know that they have a lot of talent that they'd really like to get from the state of Georgia, but Kent, I mean, he could probably play D-end, H-back, tight end. He could even bulk up, possibly be a D-tackle. Really, really good athlete right there. I'd be surprised if they didn't do their best to get, like, the versatility there is so important. If you're going to get those guys to come in like that, I don't know if they're going to have a big weekend the 20th. We'll see. That's always kind of a difficult thing to project. But he's one of the first guys that's lined up for that weekend, and that's a good sign. That's all you can do is get him lined up. Amari Clemens is coming in. That'll help. He's from Mariana, committed to Florida State. Karan Maycock, Miami Central, linebacker. I'm curious to see. I'd pick Miami if I had to pick. But, you know, that's an easy thing. And Florida State has made a history out of getting kids out of there. Penn State's going to recruit that area hard. We'll see. J.J. Sparks, Florida State and Miami, the bowl school. Those are the two visits he's got lined up. He's coming in the 20th. Graham Houston from Buford, one of the best programs in the state of Georgia, offensive lineman. He has offers from a ton of programs. I don't know if Florida State has a definitive, like, top 3 or something at interior offensive line, but this kid, just with some of the schools that are looking at him hard, Ole Miss, Georgia, and Florida, in addition to Florida State, I'd say he's pretty good. Ben Mubinga, Buford, another guy that's a really good athlete, but he's probably going to be an offensive lineman. Some guys have him as a defensive lineman, like 24/7. We'll see, but he's a really good football player. I saw him at Under Armour. Love his length and his upside. He just needs to be kind of figured out a little bit in terms of he's going to be a tackle, going to be a guard, but I like him on the offensive line. A kid that I don't know as much about, Reese Woodrow, offensive tackle out of Boone. Now, you got to remember, Florida State's got another kid out of Orlando committed, Xavier Payne, but this is a different high school. This is a Boone kid. I need to learn more about him, but he is set up for a visit. Now, as far as all these visits and everything, it's not every one of them. There's going to be something that I've missed. There's going to be somebody that's not on here. But just overall, Florida State's official visits so far, what they wind up, it's one of the best groups in the country. They're ahead of the curve again. They're pounding the pavement. That's all you can really ask. Is Florida State dominating in the recruiting world? No. But the only thing you can do in February, which, for the record, is a dead month. Kids are not allowed to take unofficial visits this month, is pound the pavement with getting out to see kids in some way, shape, or form in January, which they did. Now it's time to communicate through DMs, text messages, phone calls, stay in constant communication with their coaches, and make sure everything's good for the June visits. But also, don't forget about this. I talked about this the last couple of days for the March unofficial visits. March 22nd, I believe, is the date for Florida State's biggest weekend. They got to have as many of the elite kids from schools like Brunswick, Houston County, Buford, Orlando Jones, kids from Milton, all over the state of Florida, Georgia in particular, get to Tallahassee. If they do that, they'll be in good shape. Thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day. I truly appreciate you stopping in to talk some Noles with me. If you would, hit that like button, that notification bell, and subscribe to this podcast. We will see you again soon.